Hello, welcome to JASL Investigates. I'm Stephen Gardner. The recent trend of glamorizing drugs such as Molly by Jamaican artists is swiftly promoting its usage among young people. And yes, there are countless songs we can turn to for reference.
Pop Molly, whole place get bloody up. Fully psycho, top of them no give up. Any gun go touch that. Boss party invite everybody. Champagne pop, y'all swallow Molly. Blue cheese, what we get from Cali. Bigger than light, no night. Sip up for Molly and get high tonight. Get high tonight. Sip up for Molly and get high tonight.
Molly is a synthetic drug that alters mood and perception. It is chemically similar to both stimulants and hallucinogens, producing feelings of increased energy, pleasure, emotional warmth, and distorted sensory and time perception.
Yeah. You know we get Molly. That's a bonus. You know we get Molly. Molly, I know funny. Yeah. Jesus. Oh, the Molly team officially arrived. Look what Molly do to people.
Yeah, we wake up fast
Molly
now.
something and wickedness. Molly.
But the man then do man learn how you get you gonna fight
It is often called a date rape drug because of the trend in which men would slip it into women's drinks at clubs so they could have the women's defenses lowered and their senses altered. Then there are drugs such as poppers that are known to increase arousal and intensify orgasms. But what about the side effects? JASL Investigates caught up with Mrs. Denise Bingham, substance abuse officer from the National Council on Drug Abuse, to find out if drugs can put you at risk for contracting STIs. Ms. Bingham, can you share with our viewers what a drug addiction is?
So drug addiction is really a brain disease, which it is actually defined by harmful and repetitive drug use that causes like significant impairment in a person's life, work life, family life, in the community. So that is what is classified as drug addiction.
Can that lead to a relationship between drugs and sex?
Absolutely. I mean, there's research out there that states, a clear association between drug use and risky sexual behavior.
So, are there different types of drugs that are used for sex? I've heard about poppers and weed and ecstasy and Molly. What's going on with that?
It's a personal preference, of course, but persons have grown up with myths that say, you probably smoke ganja and it gives you a different experience, or you drink alcohol or take Molly and it gives you, a whole euphoric experience with the drug. And because, these drugs are stimulants, so they speed up the body system. So you may believe that, you're getting a better experience when it can cause a whole host of other problems for you.
So therefore we can anticipate that there is some kind of boost to the sexual experience if we're using drugs?
It differs for everybody because everybody reacts to drugs differently. Yes, you may hear somebody say, "Yeah, it did that for me specifically, and I liked it," and then you try it now, and you may end up sick and hospitalized. So you really can't just say, "Well, flatline for everybody." It will cause this. And then you have to also look at the other harmful side effects. Because persons may start getting dizzy, persons may get paranoid, persons may start experiencing maybe chills. So it depends on the type of drug they're using, of course, because there's a myriad of effects that can happen to the individual.
Sure.
So they may expect that, this is how they're going to feel, and then they end up complete opposite. Complete opposite.
Can sex then be used as a trigger to begin to use drugs?
I wouldn't necessarily it's a trigger. I would actually flip it around and say that substance misuse would be maybe a trigger for sex. And but it could be a situation where if the person maybe is involved in substance use and they associate that with sex all the time, well, yes, but for the most part with the population, it's usually the other way around, with the substance use being the trigger for the sex. Because you tend to make other decisions at the time, but maybe you didn't plan to make, and usually risky sexual behavior is included in that.
Okay. Heard you loud and clear. If someone ever gets to the point of a drug addiction, what are some of the facilities and services that are available to them?
Well, you have us, National Council on Drug Abuse, of course. We offer free counseling for anybody who wants to quit any kind of drug use behavior. But of course, if you come in for an assessment and realize that your drug use is actually very severe, it may mean that you may need an inpatient type of service, meaning that you need to stay in a kind of a rehab type of facility where you may also get maybe medical assistance with your withdrawal and all of that. So we would also be able to refer you to those type of services if that's what you need. And even coming out after that, we will be there and available for outpatient and continued care for that individual.
Fantastic. That sounds excellent. But for our viewers, what are some of the impacts that a person might be left with after taking drugs?
There are many, and again, this is really dependent on the type of drug. But persons may something like alcohol may seem minor to someone, but somebody could be drinking alcohol and end up in a serious car accident that they become paralyzed. So it really depends. There's a wide scope in terms of what can really happen to you, and it's usually even the health effects are major. And that's long term, but for young person, they usually say, "Oh, well, I'm not old, so I won't be that won't be applied to me." But guess what? There are other risky type of situations that you can put yourself in. You could get kidnapped, you could get raped, you could end up very sick or pass out in a coma. There's a range of stuff. Because even using drugs acutely, like a whole heap of them in a short amount of time, right, can cause a serious, impact in terms of you can go into a coma. So, you have to look at everybody's situation is different, all the drugs are different, everybody reacts to drugs differently. So it really depends on what you're involved in. But, we always try to preach, not so much preach, because that sounds so, but we always try to teach and wise up our youth about, making good choices for your life. The best choices you can make include going towards your success and your goals. You know what I mean? All these other things are distractions, really and truly.
Do we treat substance abuse like any other illness?
We should, because it's a brain disease. Absolutely, we should. I think there needs to be more advocacy for that, because, a lot of these places, they're not really covered by health insurance or stuff like that. So we really need to make an effort to put more advocacy when it comes on to substance misuse and really treating it as a disease, because it's a brain illness.
Does sex make you more prone to drug use?
I would not say, I would switch that around, to tell you the truth, and say substance misuse could make you more prone to get involved in risky sexual activities, and a lot of times persons, do end up in substance misuse, but the group and who they associate with, they end up in those kind of precarious situations where sex may be involved, and it may end up with, HIV, it may end up with unwanted pregnancies, or you're getting involved in a fight. There's so many different dark side to drug use when it comes on to the other related at-risk behaviors. So I wouldn't say it's a trigger, but it's a trigger in the reverse. The substance misuse can lead you down to the risky sexual behavior. I wouldn't necessarily for the sex for the substance misuse per se.
Finally, Ms. Bingham, what would you say to someone who is looking to try Molly or poppers or any other drugs to enhance their sexual experience?
I would say to avoid that because, again, like I spoke about, you can end up in more problems than pleasure. So if sex is about pleasure, going and mixing drugs with that can lead you on a whole different road. Persons have had cases where they end up in situations where it's multiple partners and that's not what they were, they didn't agree to stuff like that or rape, you know what I mean? So it's not necessarily something that you want to get involved with. And again, we speak about the health issues related to drug use and over time, what this can cause. Because when you take drugs, remember, accelerated heart rate, breathing rate, some persons pass out, so there are so many other issues that come along with that mix. You want to be engaged in some, if you're engaging in sexual activity, you want to have your head straight on your body. And remember, substance misuse can cause you to make poor decisions. So don't mix it too. And with Molly use and all of that, it causes a whole myriad of health effects. Yes, so persons may experience teeth clenching, shortness of breath, it can damage your heart and your liver. Again, the association with poor judgment or poor decisions, so it's just not a good mix. Absolutely not.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Bingham, for sharing with us.
You are most welcome.
Thanks to Mrs. Bingham for sharing with us that drugs can give you 15 minutes of pleasure, but they may cause you to make decisions that will affect you for a lifetime. I'm Stephen Gardner reporting for JASL Investigates, reminding you to do it safe. See you next time.
Jigga, pack the Mali.
Bring them singing. What is
Why,
What is
Mali.
Smiley, wait this him.
Mali.
Wait the same.
Make you boil.
No, I don't want them.
Why you don't want it?
No.
Make you mad out.
I don't want that.